If you are feeling stressed or overwhelmed or hopeless, you are in the right place. You are watching the right video. My name is Eryl, and I've dealt with mental health struggles since I was really young. So I'm recording this video really in hopes of kind of sharing my journey with you from suffering, from struggling to recovery and healing, so that hopefully you feel a little bit more inspired to keep going yourself. So I've seen a lot of the posts that are on this website, and I see myself in so many of them. I see the struggle and the fear and the shame and the exhaustion. I see it all so much. I see myself in that, and I want to acknowledge you for being part of this community and for posting, because just acknowledging where you're at is really the huge, big, major step to take to start that healing journey. So before you do anything else today, can you just acknowledge yourself for watching this video, for showing up, for being part of this community? It's super powerful. Okay, so why don't I kind of dive in? I had my first panic attack when I was 7 years old on the way to school. So I remember just stopping dead in my tracks on the sidewalk, and all of a sudden feeling like I was leaving my body. I couldn't breathe. I was panicking. My heart was racing. All I could do was cry and ask for help. And my mom was with me at the time, so she kind of helped me to come back to my breath. And it was really scary. I remember feeling like I was dying, like I was actually dying. So that was really my first mental health experience. I was a really anxious kid, and I think a lot of that had to do with my upbringing. I had a dad who was dealing with a really severe addiction and mental illness. He was battling alcoholism and bipolar disorder and wasn't medicated, wasn't able to stay sober. So there was a lot of chaos in my house. I was one of 3 kids, the middle child. So everything felt loud. I felt like there was no space for me. I didn't know how to manage my emotions. And I kind of fell into that like caretaker role of wanting to fix my dad and make sure everybody else was happy. So what happened is that I stuffed down my emotions, and they were released in these panic attacks. So I started going to therapy around the time that my parents separated. I was about 12. And it was really hard to talk about my feelings, but the more I did it, the better I felt, the lighter I felt, and the less panic attacks I would have. So I became familiar with therapy early on, and I stayed in therapy. I'm still in it to this day. I'm 31 years old now, but I've been in and out of therapy for most of my life. And I see that really as a success because I've taken my mental health seriously, and I've taken my personal growth journey very seriously, and it's paid off. So throughout my teenage years, therapy was really important to me because I developed an eating disorder. I developed anorexia. And that was another way of me, I think, coping with all of the chaos in my life, feeling completely out of control. The only thing I felt like I could control was my body. So I restricted what I ate. I overexercised. I was constantly counting calories. And of course, this only gave me temporary relief from the real pain I was feeling. So that got pretty out of control pretty fast. Around that same time, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, a fatal type of cancer. It had progressed pretty far by the time he found out he had it. So he was dealing with his cancer. I was dealing with an eating disorder, and there was just, again, a lot of chaos. If you're feeling overwhelmed just by hearing this story, take a deep breath. It gets better, okay? So I was completely overwhelmed. I reached a state of hopelessness when I was around 16 or 17. and I made 2 separate attempts on my life. And that's really hard to think about because it's hard to believe now that I wanted to give up. Like, the life I've created since then is beautiful, and I'm so glad I didn't. Something told me to keep going. But I spent time in a psych ward, was put on some medication, and really started to take my mental health much more seriously. Okay, so that's my teenage kind of mental health chapter. When I was 18, I'll just kind of close off that chapter with really one of the biggest events in my life, which was my dad passing away. So my dad lost his battle to cancer when I was 18, and that was extremely challenging, to say the least. We had a complicated relationship, I think in a large part due to his alcoholism, and I had a lot of anger and resentment, which didn't go away when he died. It was still there, and I had to deal with it, and it consumed me. It was hard to breathe and move and think and care about really anything. So I did try to go to university. It was like 2 or 3 months after he died, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't even get out of bed. So I dropped out, and as like someone that's dealt with perfectionism, this felt like a big failure, dropping out of school. I lost a scholarship that I'd worked for, and I spent the next year working at an Irish bar and really like basically drinking my face off. It's not funny, but it's true. I did that because I didn't know how to cope with the immense grief that I was feeling. So I kind of sat in it for about a year. I ended up going to a different university and doing quite well, but I struggled like every day. My depression was worsening. My grief wasn't getting better. My anxiety was through the roof. You know, I had a serious boyfriend at the time. I was trying to make it through school. There's so much going on. And if you're in that phase of your life, or if you're in high school, if you're in school in any way, you know how all-consuming and stressful it can be. So add mental health struggles on top of that, and it feels impossible sometimes. What I wish I had known then that I know now is that there is no shame, absolutely no shame in reaching out and asking for help. So many people are going through this, are having a hard time right now and always. And you can see that on this website. You're not alone in that struggle. So I wish I'd given myself a bit of a hug and a bit of a break and made more time for things like therapy and self-care. And I think it would have made things a little bit more easy. But that was my journey. So I graduated from university. I got into a career as a TV news reporter. I did that for about a year. I studied journalism in school. I ended up feeling really overwhelmed by that career, as you can imagine. My depression got even worse. I felt less like myself every day. But my saving grace was really going to yoga. So after every new shift, I would go to the yoga studio. And that was like my way to release every day. And then I started to dream about it. It became kind of clear to me that that's what I needed to do with my life, was something around wellness. So I took a big risk. I left the job I've been training for most of my life. I was unemployed for maybe a year. Horrible, confusing, difficult. So many of us are going through that right now with the pandemic. But then I found my feet. I found my footing just by following the gentle nudge of what felt good and right for me. So the more I went to yoga, the more I took those classes, and the more I started meditating, I saw that like I was meant to do something with this as a career. So I got certified. I've been teaching yoga and meditation now for over 7 years. And my mental health has improved dramatically. So it's like a long and winding story, and I've tried to put it into a nutshell for you. Today I can say that I'm largely at peace. I have some really powerful mindfulness tools for making me feel a little bit more grounded and calm. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder a few years ago, so that's a new kind of mental health challenge that I've been navigating over the past couple of years. And I've done that like somewhat gracefully, if I can even say that, honestly, with the help of a number of things. So I've got a whole wellness toolkit. It's not just about medication or therapy. Those are two major parts of my wellness toolkit. But it's also about mindfulness, practicing an awareness of my body and my thoughts, yoga and meditation. Journaling has been really big for me, art, creativity. So it's a big thing, right? And I think the more focus we place on our mental health, the better we're going to feel. So I guess my parting message to you before we move into a fun exercise is to know that you're not alone. You're not wrong. You're not failing because you feel fed up and frustrated and exhausted and disillusioned and alone. You are human. This is part of our experience on this planet, is to feel all of those things. We're not just here to feel pleasure and peace. We're here to feel grief and sadness and jealousy and rage and everything in between. That is part of the human experience. And feeling these things is what gives us the power to heal and live this like full, beautiful life. Feelings are meant to be felt. That's why they're called feelings. You know, from the beginning of that feeling, like that little bubbling in your throat or the tensing of your tummy, the beginning of the feeling, to like that full-on feeling, I'm angry, I'm rageful, I'm nervous, to the softening, like the release you get after letting go of that feeling, right? We're meant to feel the whole emotion, which is difficult to do a lot of times, but so powerful. And shame doesn't have a role, or it shouldn't have a role in the mental health picture. I've dealt with a lot of shame from my own experiences, everything from my eating disorder to my own substance misuse to suicidality, childhood trauma. Like I've carried a lot of shame in my life. And I've learned that it can only exist, this kind of shame can only have power over us if we keep this part of ourselves hidden. So shame lives in this darkness, in the shadow of our beings. And the way to start to dissolve that shame and that pain is to bring it to light, to start talking about it, or writing about it, or getting it out in some way, whatever that looks like for you. So I would invite you to reach out to somebody that you trust, or that you know, or that you'd like to know. That can be a friend, a family member, a therapist. Start the healing process by putting it into words, by giving it a language, by naming what you are going through, and then take it from there. Just one small, mindful step at a time. Remember, you're already doing something by watching this video, okay? So because I am a yoga and meditation teacher, and because I love mindfulness so much, it's really saved my life in a lot of ways, I want to end this video with a very short mindfulness exercise, okay? So just try to practice along with me if you can. If you don't feel like doing it right now, you can come back and watch this later. I'm just going to ask you to sit nice and tall. Maybe you're sitting on a chair. Maybe you're on a couch. If you're lying down for whatever reason and you're watching this, just make sure that at least your shoulders are relaxed away from your ears. So sitting up tall or lying down softly. Just take a moment to close your eyes. If that doesn't feel good, you can just look towards the floor. You just want to soften your face. Relax the space between your eyebrows. Soften all the small muscles around your eyes. Relax your jaw. Melt your shoulders away from your ears. Soften your belly. And then breathe in for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath for a moment. Open your mouth and breathe out for 1, 2, 3, 4. Do that again. Inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Open your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more deep breath in. Deep breath out. Notice how you feel. And bring your hands to your heart, placing one hand on top of the other. And I want you to say to yourself silently or in your mind or out loud, I am doing my very best. I am doing my very best. Even if those words are hard to hear, even if you don't feel like you fully believe them, practice self-compassion. Relax your hands down when you're ready. You can open your eyes when you're ready, maybe even take a little stretch. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you watched parts of it or just the end or the beginning, it's amazing to show up and learn a little bit more about what we're all going through and how we can help each other. Okay? If you want to get in contact with me, there should be some information attached to this post. I am here for you. Take care.